In the November of 2007, I met an Indian lad called Happy. He was called that because he was always smiling, this guy. He was in his mid-20s, very well educated, spoke perfect English, and we clicked straight off the bat. Every day until I left Tihar, this guy would come to my cell, or I would go over to his ward, and we would spend time together. And we talked a lot. We talked a lot about time to change. He read the stuff that I'd written, and he took much benefit from it. Anyway, he came from a well-to-do family, and he said, "Look, Steve, how would you like to meet up on the outside?" I said, yeah, why not? He said, "What would you like to do?" I said, "I'd like to go to Amsterdam and get a coffee shop, you know." He said, "Well," he said, "I can get a lot of money. I can get it transferred with a wallah, and we can basically do what we want to do." So over the weeks and that, we made plans, and we were going to find a place. We were going to have a basement in it that was going to be secret, and we were going to call this place The Underground, the name of this coffee shop. In the basement, this guy was very much into IT at the time, and we were going to have a system set up where we could monitor and track paedophiles and kill them, for want of a better word. You know, when you're in a place like TR, these kind of things come to you and you don't give it a second's thought. But it was very serious for us. And I believed this guy, you know. He was on a case for kidnapping. Now, kidnapping is very serious, you know, it's like a minimum of 15 years. And anyway, I wrote a song called The Underground and based it on this guy. And after I'd finished composing this and playing it, I used to play this song to him, and he loved this song. It was a lovely song, and it was just about the underground, the cafe. Didn't mention about the basement at all, but just talked about it and how it was and whatever. And at that time, I honestly thought this was going to happen. I really, really did. I believe he's still in jail. We never met up, obviously. And I know 2 years ago he was still in jail. So it was. There was also a guy in Baracel where I was, and his name was, well, he was called JP. I never knew him by any other name, and I'd known this guy from August of 2004 when I got transferred to Central Jail 3 from Central Jail 1. Lovely lad. He had HIV, and many times I've sat with this guy and Mick having a smoke. He liked his smack, and some days he was totally out of it, you know. One morning, I saw JP, and God, he looked so ill. He looked really ill. I says, "Man, what's going on?" He said, "Oh, I haven't been feeling well lately." He said, "They're going to take me to the outside hospital this morning for a checkup like." And that day he died. He died of AIDS. And it brought a downer to the cell, you know, to all of Baracel, like, because he was well liked, this guy. Really, he was well liked. In 2012, I met Mick again for the first time since he left jail and since I'd left jail, and I'd met him in Europe. And he was telling me that everybody we knew in Baracel, they'd all died. they'd all eventually died of AIDS. And Mick was in a bit of a state like, which is a shame. That's how it was. I liked that guy a lot. Anyway, this morning, this was in December, I got up, walking over to Ward 5 to see TMB. And I realised it was Christmas Day because this foreigner comes cycling past dressed as Father Christmas. I thought, fucking hell, only in Tihar would something like this happen. And he was just cycling round Tihar, shouting Merry Christmas and all this. And even though it meant nothing to me, I felt quite uplifted, you know? I really felt uplifted with this guy. Also in December, the British High Commission informed me that I'd be leaving back end of January. I thought, wow, it's come at last. It didn't. In February, they told me I was going in March. And it didn't. In the March, I started to get raging toothache. And I'd been to the dentist once when I was in TR back in 2003. And it was like a butcher's shop. And I thought, I'm not going to the dentist. So I channeled Reiki to myself and I said, please, just stop this pain until I at least get back to England, you know, and I can see a dentist when I get back to England. And it did. It went virtually instantly, all this throbbing and pain, it just went. It came back when I was in England, like, it came on like as AC/DC would say, like a hurricane. But that's another story. Anyway, I was then told I was going to be transferred in April and then in May. And he's never come up. And by this time, I was getting really pissed off, you know. You get lifted up and then you put down. You get lifted up, you get put down. And I said to Di this day, I said, Di, I want to go home. And he laughed. I said, I want to go home, man. I've had a fucking enough of this place. I said, I've just had enough. I want to go home. And he reminds me about that from time to time, even now. So this is why I'm mentioning it. Mick eventually got released after 8.5 years. And even though he was convicted for 10 years, they let him go on compassionate grounds. And that was a lovely day for me to see this guy. He had a smile from ear to ear, you know, that he was going back home. And I was very, very happy for this guy. He gave me his calendar. So I had this calendar on the wall and I thought, I'm going to ask the pendulum. You know, I don't, like I said before, I don't ask about future questions, you know, whatever. But I asked the pendulum, can you tell me when I'm going to leave this place? Yes. So I said, is it going to be in May? No. Is it going to be in June? Yes. And I went through the days, blah, 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 blah. And they told me that I was going to leave on Tuesday, the 24th of June. Now that for me is significant because I was put into jail on a Tuesday. My birth date is the 24th, which is 6. So the Tuesday and the 24th felt right. And I just marked that on the calendar. On the 24th of June, or on the 23rd of June, a convict came to my cell this night and said, Steve, you're leaving tomorrow. Sort your stuff. I said, is this pucker? You know, is this right like? He said, you are leaving in the morning. I said, okay. I didn't know whether to believe him or not, but anyway, I got all my stuff together that night. There wasn't that much. I just had one bag. And I put in bits of, my papers that I'd wrote, my diaries, blah, blah. A couple of bags of stones that I'd collected off the floor that I was going to use to make pendulums in the future. Anyway, that morning on the 24th, up as usual, 5:30, got my chai and smoked a spliff. And then 20 minutes later, I smoked another spliff, and then TNB come over, and I said, I'm off, matey, I'm going. So we had another spliff. So by like 7 o'clock in the morning, I was completely trashed. I had a call, I had to go to see the doctor. So I goes to see the doctor, and he says, go and lie on the bed. I thought, what the fuck's going on, like, So anyway, I'm laid on this bed, and this doctor comes over and he puts all these things over me to monitor my heart and all this bollocks, like. Anyway, after about 20 minutes, comes back, takes all these things off, and he says, come with me. So I goes into his office, and he's sat behind his desk, and he's got this tape like this, with all these graph on it. And he looked at me, and he said, you cannot fly today. I said, what do you mean I cannot fly today? He said, you have serious problem with your heart. Now, I'd smoked 3 spliffs, and I knew what the problem was, but this doctor didn't. And he says, I cannot sign the papers. And I just leaned over the desk, and I was probably this far from his face. And I said, Doc, I am leaving today. I have been in this shithole for over 5 years. All my papers, apart from yours, have been signed. I said, screw up the graph, put it in the bin, sign the papers, so I can go back to England. Do it now. And he looked at me, and he just screwed up this graph, threw it in the bin, and signed the papers. Give me this paper. Goes back to my cell. I'm just sitting in my cell, and then about 8:30, I'm called. TNB was with me. Happy was there, and another guy that was a friend of Happy's. So we walked over to the Dodie, to the main entrance, or to get into the entrance. And I felt my father's presence. I really, my father died in my arms in 1977. Now this is 2008, but I felt his presence so strongly, and I had this big smile on my face. And it wasn't because I was leaving Tihar, it was because I felt my father's presence. Anyway, gets into the dory. I'm just stood there waiting, and then they open the small door to let me outside. I goes outside, and there's a big prison bus. And it's loaded up with guards. There was like maybe 10 guards. I say guards, they were TSB. They all had like machine pistols and all this. And I thought, fucking hell, who am I? Like, I'm a nobody. Anyway, gets on this bus, and I'm the only one on the bus apart from these guards. We gets to the Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi, pulls up somewhere, steps out of the bus, and there's these 2 prison officers from England, big, burly guys. He said, are you Steve Jenkins? I said, yeah. He said, very good. Opens up my bag, goes through it, takes out my bags of stones and bins them. I said, hey man, I want them. He said, no, you can't have them. And then he turned round, and I shit you not, these guards were all stood in a row, right? And he turned to his mate and he went, what the fuck's going on? In his like London accent, you know, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. And I said, oh, they're my escort. And these guys, honestly, they were there like this, holding their guns, and they all had these cheesy smiles. And he says, I've got to take a picture of this. So he was taking pictures of these guys just stood there, you know. They walked me through. We went into the departure lounge, just sat there. I'd actually, when I got dressed, I was dressed Indian style. I had on this, what they call like a kilt. It's like a pajama trousers and this long white thing. I was all dressed in white. I had my headband on and all this bollocks. And anyway, we gets on the plane. And after some time, they come home with food. And I say, no, I can't eat this food. And this guy said, why not? And I explained to him that, you know, what my diet had been, the fast I went through. And I said, look, I can't risk it, like. I said, I'll wait. The other thing was, when I walked out of Tihar, I'd made my mind up that I wouldn't smoke any charas, marijuana, or anything like that until I was a free man. That was my decision. Anyway, we gets to London, gets off the bus, off the plane, and onto this prison bus. And he says, look, he says, I have to handcuff you. I said, yeah, crack on like. So I got handcuffed up. We gets to Wandsworth Prison. And I believe Wandsworth Prison is like a local jail in London, you know. And in hindsight, looking back on it now, it's a doghouse. It really is a doghouse. Anyway, I gets there, goes through into the reception, and this guy said, who's this? And this guy said, oh, this is the guru from India. So they had a smile, and he looked at me and he says, you can't go onto the wing like that. He says, you'll get ragged. I says, hey man, I don't fucking care. I'm back in England, you know. And he smiled, he says, we'll get you some clothes. And they did. They got me a t-shirt and a pair of blue trousers, I think they were, like jail clothes. I had to strip, they searched me. Takes me up to the wing, and I'm sat outside where these tables and chairs are, and there's all these cells. And just sat there, you know, just haven't got a clue what's going on. Now this would have been about, I don't know, 6 o'clock at night, something like that. And bearing in mind that my mindset was 4 hours on. So by this time I should have been fast asleep, because I was going to sleep about 9, half 9 at night. And I was feeling pretty tired. And anyway, this guy comes up to me. He says, you're the guy from India? And I went, yeah. And he held his hand out and he said, yeah, have this. Oh, he said to me, are you a smoker? I went, yeah. And he gave me, or he offered me this packet of tobacco, packet of papers and a box of matches. And I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, what the fuck are you doing? You know, bearing in mind where I've come from, you don't do this. And he said, what? I says, why are you giving me this? What do you want? What are you after? He says, hey man, I said, I don't want nothing. He said, this is how it is. He says, if you're a smoker and you first night in, he says, we'll give you tobacco just to help you through. And I said, you don't want nothing from me for this? He went, no man, nothing at all. So, okay, so I took this. Fucking hell. I hadn't smoked since I'd left Tihar, you know. So I made this cigarette, toking on this. And another guy came and he said, they're dishing up their dinner. They showed me this cell, which was on this wing, and we had to go downstairs to where they dished out the food. And I'm in this line, I walk up. And I get to the front and somebody shouts, chicken curry and rice for this man. Oh God, I lost it. I said, you want to give me chicken curry and rice? I says, are you fucking crazy? I says, where I've been, I said, I don't want curry and I fucking don't want rice. I want proper chicken and I want chips. And this guy, he was getting a bit snotty anyway. Another guy come over and he says, look, give this guy chicken and chips. And that night, takes this back to my cell and I have chicken and chips. And it must have took me 45 minutes to eat this. A little bit at a time, just a little bit at a time. And that night, they put another guy in my cell, and this guy was his first time in prison, and he was on suicide watch. They put him with me for some reason, and what did they do? They kept the fucking light on, you know. It was like being in Tihar again with this light. I mean, just as a quick explanation, even today, my sleep pattern is totally destroyed. I've tried various things out. I took melatonin, I took it for 6 months. I doubled the dose every day, it made no difference. So my sleep, unless I take sleeping tablets, I can wake up 5-10 times a night, every night. I was taking sleepers last year and then I stopped it and I don't take sleepers at all. So I just have to deal with it. That was my first night in an English prison. There'll probably be not many videos after this, couple, 3, I don't know. And I will talk about this next time. Please, don't forget, give me a good like, subscribe, share, send me comments, you know. I've had a few comments, I've had some in Arabic, what else? Spanish, I think. And I'm not very good with Spanish, I'll be honest with you. But please, send me comments, and I will definitely get back on whatever you say next time.